This is about targeting dangerous offenders. It is about repeat criminals. It is about those who victimize our residents and undermine public safety. This was said by County Executive of Wicomico, Julie Giordano, who just today, on January 23rd, at the Sheriff's Office building in Wicomico, announced in a press release that she is entering into a 287G program, an agreement between Wicomico County and ICE, Immigration, Custom, and Enforcement. This is a decision that has been long in the making. Wicomico Sheriff Mike Lewis, back in summer of 2025, he began thinking about entering the Wicomico County Sheriff's Department into an agreement with ICE, some kind of jail enforcement model or warrant service model. Then Julie Giordano, around this time period, in August and September, got involved in the process. It was decided that the warrant service model of 287G would be the best way to go, the best and most effective option for Wicomico County and what they needed in the time. 287G, very simply defined, is when a county or a sheriff's office in a county decides to enter into a collaborative agreement with ICE, federal agents, in order to make the process of deportations, detentions, whatever it might be, more effective and more efficient. And the warrant service model in Wicomico, what will happen essentially, because and this is an active agreement. This is an active agreement now because it was signed by Julie Giordano. The Wicomico County Council was informed of it. It will essentially allow federal agents and ICE to train and authorize corrections facilities officers to execute immigration warrants on illegals who are in jail. Back to Julie Giordano's statement and what she said in the quote that I read out. This is about making sure that illegal criminals who have committed a crime, who have committed a heinous crime in the past or some kind of misdemeanor, some kind of offense, that instead of being released back onto the streets, which happens way too often, are sent back home to their country of origin, where they are from, where they are a resident of, because they are clearly not a resident of the United States. They are not a United States citizen. This shouldn't even be a news story. This shouldn't be something that is even argued about or debated. This is a very simple thing, and it ensures that we have public safety. What are elected officials elected to do? What is their job? Their task is to ensure that the county and the government which they were elected to represent is safe, that there are not violent, rampant criminals all throughout the streets, that law and order is enforced. That is the sole purpose, that is the main function of government. As said in the Leviathan, if you want to get philosophical, I will get philosophical. Read some Hobbes, okay? The entire purpose of a government, the entire purpose of the American people entering into a contract with the federal government, with the state government, with the local government through the Constitution is to ensure that the government protects them, that it does not allow them to be killed and murdered, raped, or whatever it might be. That is exactly what has happened in the past. Think about Rachel Morin. Only a year ago, maybe less, an illegal criminal who had no business being in the United States or in the state of Maryland raped and violently murdered a young mother. This happens a lot throughout the country and in Maryland, which is a sanctuary state. So we need to ensure that that does not happen. What other models could have been enforced in this particular case with 287G? A task enforcement model could have been implemented. And that is basically where sheriff's officers, where county officials, where law enforcement officials are going out onto the streets and acting in the capacity of ICE, rounding up people, detaining them, and deporting them, getting them out of the country. Honestly, I like that, but this is a great step in the right direction. And in the context of what's going on at the state level, it's particularly important. Only a day before this announcement was made, there was a hearing for Senate Bill 245. This was introduced by Bill Ferguson. It was sponsored and introduced by Senate President Bill Ferguson, who is a Democrat, to end 287G programs throughout the entire state of Maryland, whether they be warrant service models like the one that is now implemented in Wicomico County, or jail enforcement models, or task enforcement models. All of them will be prohibited and banned in the state of Maryland if this passes, and there is a good chance of that happening. It is incredible. It is an incredible feat that Julie Giordano has punched back against the state Democratic regime in implementing this. Because also, only a couple months ago, back in October 15th, Attorney General Anthony Brown sent out a legal memo stating that if this agreement were made, Wicomico County would open itself up to legal action. And so it was put on the back burner, it was put on hold, and now the decision has been made to enter into it. And in the context of the state government, again, trying to get rid of it, this is an incredible accomplishment, and it really shows the ability and the capacity of the Republican Party to fight back. Criticism. Who has criticized this? There are many people who have criticized this. Many leftists, many organizations which are anti-American, which are illegal immigrant first. The NAACP stated, "Public safety is built on trust, not fear-mongering." That's rich coming from an organization like this, and organizations that really push back against ICE, saying, if we have ICE in this county, if we have agreements between the county government and ICE, then all your families will be rounded up and deported. They're going after minorities, black and brown people. They're not even checking to see whether or not you're an immigrant or a resident or a citizen or illegal. You are going to be rounded up and deported, and your rights are going to be taken away. Trump is a fascist. ICE is a Gestapo organization, 1930s Germany. These are the organizations which are doing the fear-mongering. And they have the audacity, NAACP has the audacity to say, public safety is built on trust, not fear-mongering. Public safety is built on enforcing the law, actually. Public safety is built on our elected leaders ensuring that people who are not supposed to be here, who are here illegally, and on top of that have committed heinous crimes, are sent back to their own country. That they are not living here, that they are not taking up our resources and taking the lives of our residents. Because this is what is at stake here, people's lives, the lives of residents. The NAACP also said in their statement that they testified at the Senate Judiciary Committee in support of ending 287G programs. This was January 22nd. Now, Julie Giordano and other advocates of 287G programs were also in attendance at this particular hearing. Again, this is something that has been introduced by the Maryland Democrats. They see it as a big priority to get rid of all the 287G programs in the red counties that implement them. They want to overextend their power and their reach as a state government in telling county governments and sheriff's offices and all these different places, hey, you cannot protect your communities. You cannot ensure that there are no illegals in your communities. We want to protect them. We want to keep them there. We do not want you using your sheriff's officers, or in this case in Wicomico County, we do not want you to be allowed to use your corrections facilities officers to check the immigration status of the people that are in custody, that are being held in jail, to see whether or not they can be held for a couple days longer so that ICE can come and detain them. A corrections facilities officer will simply look at a criminal's record and determine whether or not they are a citizen, whether or not they are here illegally, and if not, they will issue a warrant to this individual and hold them for an extra 48 hours and inform ICE that they have an illegal that can be detained. It's very simple, and it ensures that violent criminals are not let back onto the streets. This is a very, very simple program, and the fact that it is receiving such backlash, especially from people like Josh Hastings, who's running for delegate over here on the Lower Eastern Shore, he said, ICE's actions have destroyed trust here in Delmarva. Trust is the buzzword that's being thrown around, not only by far-left Democrats, people like Josh Hastings and organizations like the NAACP, but also by our state leaders. They're saying allowing county governments to enter into agreements and partnerships with ICE, which has done so many terrible things, which has killed people, torn families apart, and all these awful things that we see on social media and the news, allowing our county governments to enter into agreements with them is destroying public trust. It's making our citizens not trust us. It's making our citizens not feel safe. If we allow our counties to have the right to enter into partnerships to secure our streets and to make sure that we have safe towns and safe municipalities and safe areas, and that they're not being killed and raped and murdered by these poor illegals, they're gonna not trust us anymore. I don't care. Who cares whether or not the public trusts you? If the public does not trust an elected leader because they protected the community by sending away an illegal criminal back to their country, then that person belongs in an insane asylum. They shouldn't have the right to vote. If they feel as though the county has committed such a grave sin just because they're enforcing laws, what is that person even thinking? That's idiocy. That's so stupid. In conclusion, this was an incredible decision, and it was a great press conference. If you haven't seen it, I definitely recommend. If you haven't seen it, I definitely recommend watching it. What's next? 287G programs like the one that has just been entered into by Julie Giordano, they are at threat of being destroyed and eliminated at the state level. It is very likely that the state Democratic majority will pass Senate Bill 245 to end all 287G agreements throughout the entire state of Maryland. And that would go into effect theoretically on July 1st, 2026, which is what's stated in the legislation. My only question, and the question that we should be asking now, is what happens if our county leaders, our county executives and our sheriffs and people that have entered into these agreements that are enforcing these agreements, what if they defy the state government and file lawsuits? What would happen then? Would it be expensive? Maybe. Maybe there would be some expensive lawsuits, but would it be a good investment? Hell yeah, it would be. Because guess what? This is something that we should all be considering and taking into account. We have the Supreme Court. We have a supermajority in the Supreme Court, 6-3. So we have the potential right now at the federal level to take this cases like this, all the way to the Supreme Court and to have a ruling in our favor. And to make sure that any kind of bill or state law or legislation that tries to end 287G programs would be eliminated, would be not legal. Supremacy clause, baby. That is what the supremacy clause is. If the Supreme Court rules in our favor that these state governments cannot ban 287G agreements, then it's finished. And we got them. And in all these blue states, not just Maryland, but in all the blue states, Democratic leaders at the state level will not be able to do this. And counties will reserve the right to partner with federal agents to get violent criminals and people out of the country. If we are able to do that and get publicity on this and really fight back against the Democratic establishment that still has power in these different states, then we will be the victors. We will win. We will use the power of the federal government to put these people in their place because they need to be put in their place. They cannot tell us and our county governments and the people that we elect that we cannot keep our streets safe. They cannot tell us that we need to release a bunch of violent criminals back onto the street. That is BS. That is total lunacy. That is ridiculous. And we need to use every single thing that we possibly have, whether it be the power of the media, the power of publicity, and the power of the federal government, which we totally control. We have a trifecta, and we also control the Supreme Court. This is to protect American citizens, to protect Marylanders, to put Maryland first, and that is what we need. And people who disagree with that, I don't think they should be in politics. If the open agenda slate comes out and says, well, I really think that this is a bad idea. This is a really terrible thing that the county executive has done. If, what's his name, Jim Adkins comes out, who's running as a Democrat apparently in a Republican district, if he comes out and says, well, I think that what
county executive, what Joey Giordano said is really bad and really unfortunate. You know, the process isn't going through right. We should be able to protect our legal citizens.
If he says something like that, he should just resign. He should just drop out of the race. If Joe White comes on and says, "Hey, friends, welcome back to Open Agenda. Today, the county executive has made a decision that will cost taxpayers thousands of dollars." If he comes out and says that, he's not a fighter. He is not a serious candidate for the 5th District of Wicomico. If he comes out and says some BS like, "Well, the taxpayers of Wicomico County will have to pay a lot of money for these lawsuits that are coming up," then that will be a bad thing. Don't you think so, leftist Joe Venosa? If he says something like that, why are you even running for office? Do you want to be slapped around like a little bitch by the Democrats? I don't think so. We do not want to be slapped around by the Democrats. We want to fight back. That is exactly what I want to do. That is exactly what I support. We need to elect Republican leaders who are willing and who have the wherewithal and who have the courage and the boldness and the confidence and the strength to punch back against these Democrats who are trying to make our streets like West Baltimore. We cannot let it happen.